The forest was alive with danger, the wind howling like a chorus of unseen predators as Mara stumbled through the mud, her cloak torn and soaked, heart hammering against her ribs. She had been running for what felt like an eternity, yet the scent on her skin betrayed her, the scent of fear, weakness, and an omega marked by fate. Behind her, the crack of branches under heavy footsteps told her she was not alone, and then he appeared, Kaelan, the Alpha King. His golden eyes blazed in the darkness, molten fire in the storm, towering, unyielding. Every step he took was power personified. Mara froze, chains of terror locking her limbs as he closed the distance effortlessly, the air around him charged with dominance and raw, dangerous allure. "You've been running, little Omega," he said, voice low and dangerous, yet mesmerizing, "but you cannot hide from what is yours." Before she could scream or flee, he was upon her, pulling her into the shadows of his domain. Mara's pulse raced, her mind screamed for escape, yet every instinct betrayed her. This Alpha King, the one everyone whispered about, was claiming her tonight. And fate had no intention of letting her go. The storm raged like a wild beast over the dense forest, lightning splitting the sky in jagged streaks while rain hammered the earth. Mara's breath came in ragged gasps as she stumbled through the mud, her thin cloak soaked and clinging to her trembling form. She had been running for hours, or maybe days. She couldn't remember. Her mind was a tangle of fear and exhaustion, the memory of the silver-tipped hunters echoing in every heartbeat. She wasn't just an Omega, she was a marked Omega. A cursed one, the whispers had said, weak and fragile, meant for no pack, for no mate. Her scent must have carried far, because suddenly the forest seemed to shift around her. Trees groaned as though warning her, shadows twisted unnaturally. And then he was there. He stepped from the darkness as if he had been carved from it, tall, powerful, and terrifyingly beautiful. His eyes, a molten gold, burned straight into her soul. Mara froze, unable to speak, unable to move, her instincts screaming at her to run, yet her legs refused. "You've been running," his voice rumbled, low and dangerous, yet smooth as silk. "And now you're mine." Before she could protest, he closed the distance in a heartbeat. Mara barely had time to feel the cold steel of chains snapping around her wrists before he lifted her effortlessly, carrying her into the shadows of his pack stronghold. Every nerve in her body screamed in protest, but his scent, deep, commanding, utterly dominant, made her pulse thrum with something she didn't want to name. Inside the stronghold, the air was warm, thick with the musk of wolves and firewood. He set her down roughly, yet there was a strange care beneath the force. Mara's eyes darted to the massive hall, walls lined with trophies of hunts and ancient carvings, and realized with a shiver that this was no ordinary Alpha. "I am Kaelan," he said, his gaze locked on her trembling form. "Alpha King of the Ibonclaw pack, and you are my fated mate." Mara laughed bitterly, though no humor reached her voice. "Fated? You barely know me, and I don't even belong in a pack." Kaelan's lips curved into something terrifyingly close to a smile. "That doesn't matter. Fate does not wait for permission, little Omega. Tonight you will endure the night in my bed, and only then, may you walk free." Mara's stomach churned with dread and something else, a spark of something she couldn't yet name. Her mind screamed, "No, I won't, I can't," but her body betrayed her, trembling with anticipation and fear. The Alpha King didn't wait for further protest. He guided her to a chamber that was both opulent and wild fur-lined floors, heavy curtains swaying in the storm outside, and a massive bed that seemed more throne than resting place. Kaelan's presence filled the room, his golden gaze never leaving her. "You will stay there tonight," he said, voice a growl that made her shiver in a way she didn't understand. "You will endure, and by dawn your freedom will be decided." Mara's heart pounded. Every instinct told her to flee. Every shred of logic screamed, "This is madness." Yet she couldn't deny the magnetic pull, the unrelenting heat of him even across the room. The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the tense curve of his jaw, the broad sweep of his shoulders, the power coiled in his every movement. She swallowed hard, trembling at the thought of what the night might bring. Kaelan stepped closer, and with a gentleness that was almost unbearable, he lifted her chin with one finger, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Endure, little Omega," he whispered. Endure and you will see that the world is far more than suffering. You will see what it means to belong. The first drop of rain leaked through the window, spattering the floor, and Mara realized with a jolt that she had no choice but to surrender, at least for the night. And so the night began. The room was alive with a strange, intoxicating energy. The storm outside a distant drum compared to the storm building between them. Mara's heart raced, a mix of fear, defiance, and something far more dangerous, curiosity. Kalen circled her like a predator assessing his prey, every movement deliberate, every step echoing power. Mara's fingers twitched at her sides, wanting to push him away, yet every instinct told her she could not. "You fear me," he said, his voice low, rumbling like distant thunder. "Good, you should. Fear keeps you alive." But, his lips curved, just slightly, "You will learn that fear is only the beginning." Mara clenched her jaw. I won't let you control me." Kalen's amber gaze locked with hers, unwavering. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Her breath hitched involuntarily. "Control. Omega, I do not control, I claim. And if you endure what I require, you will understand the power of our bond. You will understand what it means to be mine." His words sent shivers racing down her spine, and she hated herself for feeling them. Hate, no. Something else stirred deep within, a spark, an ache, a dangerous anticipation she could not name. Kalen's hand brushed a strand of wet hair from her face, lingering, deliberate. Mara's body betrayed her, heart hammering, breath catching. Every rational thought screamed to flee, yet every nerve burned with the pull of him. He leaned closer. The scent of his wolf filling her senses, wild, commanding, impossible to resist. "Tonight," he whispered, "you will endure. But know this, every moment, every touch, every command, it is for your awakening." Mara closed her eyes, trying to steel herself. She had survived predators, hunters, curses, and scorn, but this was different. She felt raw, exposed, trembling with the sheer force of his presence. The night deepened. Kalen's hands moved over her shoulders, tracing lines that made her gasp. He was careful, methodical, yet every touch ignited sparks that leaped through her body. She tried to pull away once, twice, but his grip was gentle, persuasive, impossible to resist. "You are fated, Mara," he murmured, pressing close. "No matter how much you fight, no matter how much you resist, your essence calls to mine. You belong to me." Mara's eyes brimmed with tears, frustration, confusion, and the undeniable pull of something she had never experienced. She hated the way her body responded, hated the way her pulse raced, the way her breath hitched. Yet beneath it all, a dangerous thrill bloomed, the seed of a connection that could not be broken. Kalen paused, studying her like she was both precious and fragile, yet terrifyingly strong in her own hidden way. "Endure this night, little Omega," he whispered. "And by dawn, you will see that the world we create together is far greater than the world you have fled. Pain and desire, fear and trust, all of it will bind us." He stepped back just enough to let her breathe, letting the tension coil like a spring between them. Mara sank to the edge of the massive bed, trembling, overwhelmed, and yet unwilling to look away. The storm outside began to soften, rain tapping a steady rhythm on the roof. But inside, Mara and Kalen were caught in a storm far more intimate, far more consuming, one that would mark the beginning of a bond neither of them could deny. Mara closed her eyes, waiting, dreading, yet strangely craving the night that was far from over. The candlelight flickered, casting elongated shadows across the fur-lined walls of Kalen's chamber. Mara sat stiffly on the edge of the massive bed, her body trembling, not from cold, but from the lingering heat of his presence. Every inch of her skin seemed alive, alert to the faintest movement, the slightest brush of air, as if the room itself was conspiring with him. Kalen did not speak immediately. He simply watched her, his golden eyes tracking her every breath, every heartbeat. Mara could feel it, the magnetic pull of him, a gravity she could neither fight nor escape. "You think you can resist," Kalen said, finally, voice smooth, yet layered with something dangerous and possessive. "But resistance, Omega, resistance only sharpens the bond. It makes the yielding all the more potent." Mara glared at him, chest heaving. "I am not yours. I will never be." Kalen moved with predatory grace, cutting her off. Before she could rise, his hand was at her wrist, firm, commanding, yet not cruel. "Shay," he whispered, leaning close, letting the warmth of his body envelop her. "You are already mine. Your scent, your essence, they call to me, Mara. Fighting only proves it." Her breath caught. Every rational thought she had was being shredded by the heat of him, the intensity of the unspoken claim. The Alpha's presence was intoxicating, suffocating, thrilling. And yet she could not fully submit, not yet. Not until she understood the stakes of this bond, this fate that tethered them together. Kalen tilted his head, studying her, his expression unreadable. Then, with a movement that was almost ceremonial, he knelt before her. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears as his gaze locked with hers, piercing, unyielding. "You will endure, little Omega," he said, his voice dropping to a growl. "Tonight, I will awaken what you cannot yet see in yourself. Your strength, your power, your belonging to me." Mara swallowed hard, a shiver running down her spine. She wanted to fight, to scream, to run, but every fiber of her being betrayed her. Her body yearned for the connection she did not yet understand, the primal bond that pulsed beneath the surface. Kalen's hand brushed her cheek, tender yet commanding. "Fear will pass. Doubt will break. By dawn you will know." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink deep into her. "That your place is not just by my side, but in my bed, in my life, in my heart." The words sent a tremor through her. Mara's hands twitched, aching to resist, yet drawn toward him. The storm outside had quieted, leaving only the soft patter of rain, but inside, a tempest raged between them, desire, fear, defiance, and surrender tangled into one. Kalen rose, powerful and unrelenting. He circled her again, letting her sense his dominance without touching her, a masterful display of control that made her knees weak. "Endure this night," he whispered, his breath brushing her ear. "Endure, and you will see the truth. You are fated to me. Every beat of your heart, every shiver, every fleeting thought, they belong to me." Mara's chest rose and fell rapidly, the tension between them electric. She felt herself teetering on the edge of surrender, not knowing whether she wanted to resist or succumb entirely. The bond, the fated pull, was awakening, fierce and undeniable, and even her defiance could not dim it. Kalen stepped closer, his body mere inches from hers. "Rest now," he murmured, almost gently, though the heat in his eyes promised the storm was far from over. "Sleep, and by dawn you will see what it truly means to endure me, Omega." Mara's eyelids fluttered, exhaustion and desire intertwining, her mind a whirlwind of fear, confusion, and anticipation. She lay back on the bed, the fur soft beneath her, her body tense, yet drawn to him like a moth to fire. Outside, the night whispered through the trees, but inside, Mara and Kalen were bound in a tempest far more intimate, far more consuming, one that would leave no part of her unchanged by morning. The first night had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first light of dawn seeped through the heavy curtains, spilling across the fur-lined chamber. Mara stirred, eyelids heavy, heart still racing from a night that had left her both exhausted and inexplicably alert. She didn't dare move immediately, afraid of what she might find across the room. Kalen was already awake. He lounged near the fire, golden eyes fixed on her as if he had been watching her every breath through the night. His presence was magnetic, almost suffocating, and Mara felt it tug at her very soul. "You woke," he said, voice low, calm, but edged with the danger that had haunted her all night. I slept," she stammered, though her voice sounded small even to her own ears. Her gaze flicked away, unwilling to meet his. Kalen tilted his head, a faint smirk ghosting his lips. "Only slept. You've stirred something in me, little Omega. And I think something in you too." Mara's pulse jumped. She tried to deny it, tried to convince herself that she was just frightened, that the heat in her chest and the tremor in her hands were nothing more than lingering fear. But deep inside, she knew better. Something undeniable had awakened between them. He rose tall and commanding, moving toward her with the deliberate grace of a predator. Mara's muscles tensed instinctively, yet there was nowhere to flee. She had no choice but to face him, to meet his gaze. "Your scent," Kalen murmured, stopping just inches from her. "It calls to me. Every ounce of your essence is tethered to mine. You may resist, but Omega resistance only makes the bond stronger." Mara's knees threatened to buckle, but she forced herself upright, I will not belong to you. Not fully, not yet. Kaelin's hand brushed her cheek, gentle and impossible to resist. Belonging isn't about permission, he said softly, though there was a dangerous edge beneath it. It's in the soul, in the blood, in the bond that binds us. You can feel it, can't you? Even if you won't admit it. She swallowed hard. The truth burned in her chest. Yes, she could feel it. The pull of him, the undeniable tie that connected them beyond thought or willpower. It was terrifying and intoxicating. Kaelin's fingers trailed down her arm, a touch both commanding and careful, leaving sparks in their wake. Tonight was only the beginning, little Omega, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. The bond between us, it cannot be broken. It cannot be denied, and I will not let it be. Mara trembled, a shiver running through her that was part fear, part desire, part something she could not yet name. Her mind screamed for caution, yet her body betrayed her, leaning involuntarily toward him. You will endure, Kaelin said, stepping back slightly, giving her the tiniest space to breathe. Not because you have no choice, but because it is the path to understanding. The path to awakening. She looked at him, really looked at him, the Alpha King, terrifying in his dominance, yet undeniably protective in a way that confused her. There was a fire in his gaze, but also something else. Something that made her pulse thrum in a way she could no longer ignore. The storm of the night had passed, but its echoes lingered between them. Mara realized, with a mixture of fear and reluctant anticipation, that she was no longer merely surviving. She was beginning to live, and the cost of that life might be surrendering herself completely to Kaelin, the Alpha King who had claimed her as his fated mate. The bond had tightened, and Mara knew deep down that there was no turning back. The morning sun filtered weakly through the heavy curtains, casting golden streaks across the chamber. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, knees pulled close, her gaze fixed on the fur beneath her trembling fingers. The night had changed something inside her, something she could not yet name, something that made her heart pound at the memory of Kaelin's touch. Kaelin stepped into the room, his presence filling the space before he even reached her. The air seemed to thrum around him, charged with the power of a wolf and the dominance of an Alpha King. He didn't rush, he didn't demand. He simply watched, every movement measured, every breath a test of her resolve. You've survived the first night, he said softly, though the growl underlying his words made her shiver. That was only the beginning, Mara. You will endure more, for the bond is growing stronger, and you will learn what it truly means to be mine. Mara forced herself to meet his gaze, though her chest felt as if it might betray her. I don't know what this bond is, or why it pulls me to you like this. Kaelin stepped closer, his hand brushing a lock of wet hair from her face. It is in your soul, he whispered. It is the pull you cannot fight. It is the heat that burns even when fear rises. The bond does not lie, Omega. And neither do I. Her pulse thundered in her ears, her body responding against her will. The Alpha King's scent, his golden gaze, his raw power, it all called to her in ways she didn't yet understand, and every instinct screamed both run and stay. Enough talk, Kaelin said suddenly, his voice dropping to a growl. You will learn by feeling, not by words. Before she could react, he guided her to stand, his hands firm but careful on her shoulders. He closed the distance, and the moment his chest brushed hers, her knees buckled slightly. Mara gasped, trying to step back, but he didn't let her. He simply held her in place, letting the tension coil between them. You are mine, he murmured, his lips brushing her temple just shy of contact. And this bond, your fated bond, cannot be denied. Every heartbeat, every shiver, every breath belongs to me, Mara. You will feel it fully tonight. She wanted to argue, to resist, but words failed her. The air between them crackled, the heat of desire mingling with fear, a storm far fiercer than the one that had raged outside the night before. Mara's own senses betrayed her, her pulse quickened, her breath caught, and she realized with a mixture of horror and thrill that she craved him, even while hating the idea. Kaelin studied her, reading every flicker of her fear, every twitch of anticipation, and then he released her shoulders just enough to let her regain a semblance of control. Tonight, you will endure again, he said, voice low and commanding. But know this endurance is not punishment, It is awakening. The bond will claim you in ways you cannot yet imagine. And by morning, little Omega, you will understand what it means to truly belong to me." Mara's knees shook, her mind a tangle of fear, defiance, and desire she could no longer deny. She took a shaky breath, knowing that this night would test her limits, challenge her strength, and awaken parts of herself she had never known existed. Kylan stepped back, watching her with a golden intensity that made her shiver. The first night had awakened the bond, but this night, this test would cement it. And Mara knew deep down that her life, her heart, and her very soul were now intertwined with the Alpha Kings in ways she could never escape. The storm outside was gone, but the storm within Mara raged stronger than ever, and Kaelin was at its center.